All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second week of our Divesoft Dive Talks Live. This week, my guest is Becky Kagan Schott, very well-known underwater photographer. She's an Emmy Award winning underwater director of photography, photographer, and tech instructor. So, welcome to the show, Becky.
Hey, thanks for having me, Joe. It's fun to do all these live broadcasts and talks. And if we can't be diving, it's just fun to talk about it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. If we're not diving, we're thinking about diving, and if we're not thinking about diving, we're talking about diving, right? So.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, cool. Yeah. No, you've been doing a lot of live streams lately. You even started a show on your own, and then last week we had our inaugural episode. Jill joined us, and you even chimed in with some of your questions, which were really great. And so we hope that some of our viewers will ask some more questions, get a different perspective from everybody.
Yeah, that's what I love about doing these live broadcasts. I love to see what questions everyone comes up with and, what everyone's interested in hearing. Like we keep saying, we can talk about anything. Are you interested in in-depth subjects, or in-depth about photography or cave diving? Just shipwreck diving. There's just so much that we can discuss. So,
even traveling, and so even our non-diving hobbies, we'll have to dive in and figure out if we have any, right?
I don't know. Everybody keeps asking me that. They're like, "What do you do if you're not diving?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't really cleaning the dive gear, servicing things. Everything is serviced right now, ready to go for when we're back in the water.
Yeah, we're all itching to go diving.
Well, for me, the one good thing about this time off is I've been so backlogged on all kinds of photos and video to edit. So I've been spending a lot of time editing a lot of videos together that I shot back last summer and last fall. So I still have Truck Lagoon. I was there in November, and I haven't even touched any of that stuff video-wise.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I've got plenty to do.
I used to tell my students, you take 1,000 pictures to get just, one or two good shots. So
I don't know what you're talking about. Every shot I take is perfect.
I one hit wonder every time. I still shoot and film because I'm so good.
I'm just kidding.
Well, cool. Yeah, it looks like we have a lot of people joining us. We have folks from Italy. Hope you guys are doing great over there. Rebecca from the West Coast. And we have Sean from Georgia. All right. And hello from Turkey, too. Tagmak from Turkey. So it's pretty great,
Rebecca, great name, by the way. But Rebecca says, talk about diving. All right. But what about diving, Rebecca? What do you want to know?
She asked that you just got your Liberty, and you just became a Liberty instructor.
So. I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we were super excited to have you join the Divesoft Liberty team. So, but yeah, so yeah,
Rebecca's I'm loving my side mount Liberty. It's just a blast to be on. I've taken it to a lot of different locations so far. I started out in Florida and I was doing some cave diving, and then I took it to Belize and was doing some cave diving out there with it, which was pretty much the application that I wanted to use it for. And then later on, I've been doing some cold water diving with it locally, and then I took it to Croatia and Italy, and that was my first time diving actually any kind of side mount off of a boat, because I never usually dove. If I was diving open circuit side mount, it was just in caves. So it was a really cool experience diving it off of a boat. And with the Liberty, it really wasn't a pain at all. It was pretty handy actually, because sometimes we were on these little ribs and skiffs, and I could just pass up my bailout tank, pass up the rebreather, and then it was really easy for me to get back on the boat versus a back mount rebreather. So it was pretty handy.
Yeah, that's really good. It's you got to use every tool for the right job, and so. But it's great to hear that it was versatile enough to be able to dive from a rib and side mount, and it takes definitely a team. Being able to hand the stuff out. So.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think it was almost a benefit diving off a rib in the side mount unit, because I didn't have to be on the rib all geared up in my back mount rebreather. When it was time to splash, when we got to the dive site, it was like, okay, cool, clip everything on and just do a back roll into the water. So instead of sitting there in my back mount rig, for 20 or 30 minutes, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's, oh man, I love diving on side mount, especially on the Liberty. It's just so comfortable on your back. It's just so nice. It's 2 clips and a mouthpiece. You can't get more simple than that. So it looks like we have, I got Matej behind the scenes. He's broadcasting some footage. We're kind of experimenting with broadcasting, showing some multimedia, kind of enrich the conversation a little bit more. So if anything pops up, don't be worried.
You're letting Matej control that thing back there?
I know. He shut his door so he can't see what he's doing. So it's like Dave from the bunker. So
yeah, he's down there right now as we speak. I see that he's already tuning in with some questions. It's just that he doesn't have a live camera, so we won't see him this time.
Maybe for the best.
No. But yeah, we've been doing some of these other live broadcasts, and I think right now everybody's really interested, and there's a lot of really good ones going on, on all kinds of different subjects. So I think it's keeping people engaged, and when we can't be diving, if we can at least talk about it and stay excited about it, then I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and the community, we always like to try to stay keep in touch and everything. And I always joke that the diving industry is made up with a bunch of stray cats, and we have so many different stories and different backgrounds. There's so many things you can do underwater, everything from scientists to diving instructors to scuba bums and people that, they just farm, they use scuba diving for farming underwater. So it's just it's a big mixed bag, big melting pot. That's probably the best word for it, of people in the diving industry. So yeah, great. So I have some questions that I would love to bring out that I think our viewers will find pretty interesting. Something with some of the more shorter forms of discussion that we don't really get to dive into, but what I want to talk about is kind of your story, Beck. When you're a kid, you have kids that they want to be a marine biologist, I want to be an astronaut, and they have these aspirations. And then, when you find out things are a little bit different than what you expected them, it's kind of harder to find your path and how to, turn being a diving professional or working underwater, let alone filming and making these incredible documentaries underwater. That's no easy task, and to have that as a career, it's a story in itself of how you got there. So I don't know if you can paint a little bit of a roadmap from your journey from school to where you are now.
Sure. And that's a question I get asked a lot. They're like, oh my God, everyone always asks, how did you get here? How did you do this? Or I'm interested in this career. But you even just said, all right, can you paint us a path from school? My journey started way before school. I mean, I started diving when I was 12. I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I can't explain it. It's probably like a lot of the people watching. I just was in love with the ocean. I was in love with fish and marine life, even being in landlocked, Pittsburgh. So I started doing just a lot of reading about fish and scuba diving, and my parents got me a subscription to Skin Diver magazine. And
great, yeah.
I was really fortunate because when I was almost 12, my dad and I went down to Florida for a cousin's wedding, and it was in Pompano Beach, and the hotel that we were staying at had a dive shop right next door. So I walked into the dive shop as an excited 12-year-old, and I heard about these things that they would do called resort courses, and my dad let me do one. He signed me up for it, and I got to go on my first scuba dives. I did 2 more resort courses before I ever got certified, and then I went home and I found a dive shop in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania called Smiley Scuba. And I basically walked in and I said, hi, my name's Becky, and you're going to certify me in scuba. And
you just tell them this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, basically I'm getting certified. And it was really cute because the scuba instructor, Sue, she told me this years later. She said, normally I didn't certify anyone under the age of 16, but you walked in and you were so confident and you just knew what you wanted to do. She's like, I couldn't say no to you. So I did my classes, and from the very first dives I did, I was already taking a camera with me because nobody else in my family was a diver. So I wanted to show them what I was seeing. And at the time, that was just these really, really simple point and shoot disposable cameras that would go into a housing. It was really, these disposable film cameras. So, I got a lot of bad pictures, but, I was enjoying myself. When I was in high school, I started taking some photography classes because I wasn't getting great pictures underwater, but occasionally I'd get a really good one. And I had no idea what I did to get the good picture. I mean, I didn't, it was like a happy accident, Mm-hmm. So I started taking some photography classes in high school and video production classes. I lived in Orlando at the time. When I was 13, we moved to Orlando. And so now I'm surrounded by diving. I was diving all the time, hanging out at the dive shop and, just learning everything I could about scuba. Meanwhile, in high school, learning everything I could about photography. I never honestly thought I would do photography as a living until I was in college, but I went to do marine science. And then when I was in college, I kind of went through some internships and decided that science wasn't for me. I liked it and I liked learning about a lot of different topics, but I liked so many different things. I was already a cave diver. I was already doing some deep wrecks, and I was a scuba instructor at that time. And so I was I was in love with all these environments. They're cool, right? I mean, to show people caves, it's something completely different. So I started following like Wes Skiles' work and Jill's work when I was in high school, and I'd see documentaries that they were doing, and just started trying to make my own. But I didn't have the equipment or good enough equipment at the time. So so I learned how to shoot on land. And that's something that a lot of people don't know about me, is that I started shooting on land first, both video and stills. And then when I could finally afford the equipment or upgrading my equipment over the years, I'd slowly upgrade and get better stuff to shoot underwater with.
Well, that's a lot, and it's a big picture on that. It's but like you're saying, you kind of you found yourself more drawn to the photography aspect of it, and when you didn't have access to the kind of some of those things like underwater, like the very expensive underwater cameras, you worked more on land. And that's something that people don't really talk very much about, is doing photography on land. And then
if I figured, well, if I can learn these really good skills on land, then I can apply them underwater. And that is really important, because you need to know how to use your camera, and you need to know different techniques before you're in an environment where you're watching your buoyancy, looking at the light.
There's so many other things you got to watch.
Exactly. So I also joke with people, I kind of literally learned to shoot in the dark. When I did get my first decent camera, I was already cave diving. So I just took it right into the caves and caverns. And let me tell you, my first pictures were definitely not very good.
Just like a little spotlight. That's it, right? A little bug.
Yeah. Like you see a little piece of fuzzy limestone. It's not even in focus.
You're like, look at the cave. And everyone's like, oh, that's not much.
Oh, it's so dark in there. Isn't it scary? I'm like, it just looks kind of scary with the pictures I'm taking. So, but to me that was fun, and it was challenging because I'd get these bad pictures, and remember, this is film, so I'd have to wait a week, get it developed, and then look at my pictures and go, oh yeah, that one worked out. Ooh, those didn't really work out. So I would try to remember the different things I was learning in classes and apply those things to my underwater photography, and then of course look for inspiration, with other people's photography. And it's definitely a growing and learning process. You don't go from picking up a camera to being a professional photographer. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. Right. So then I just said, what? I love science and technology and history and all these things, marine life, and how can I share and educate people about these environments? And that was through documentaries and still photography, because I definitely find that if you can inspire somebody through imagery, then you can inspire them to do anything. Maybe take up scuba classes in the first place, or maybe start technical diving, or maybe inspire them to, protect an animal, or take up cave diving when they never thought they would be a cave diver. So, or even travel to a place. They might go, wow, I never thought I'd ever dive in Antarctica, but wow, these pictures really inspire me to want to go and dive in Antarctica. So, I find it really rewarding, and it is a lot of hard work. Nobody sees a lot of the behind the scenes parts of it, but it's very rewarding, and it's been an evolution over the years, is all I can say. So from starting out with cave diving, and then transitioning to shooting more wrecks and a lot more marine life, I've also had to become very versatile in a lot of different environments. So, and that's a key thing to what I do now. Because if I get a call from, say, Discovery Channel, and they want us to go shoot, under 6 feet of ice in Alaska, we have to be comfortable in those environments and know how to shoot in those environments, because if we don't do it well, we'll never get hired again. So there's a lot to
be safe. You can't have an accident on a project like that,
No. So usually we're always practicing, different skills, and, we've got to be ready to go with, side mount open circuit, side mount rebreather, back mount rebreather, cold water, warm water, big animals, dry gloves. I mean, all these different pieces of equipment have to be ready to go, and you have to be able to use them, in different environments, and use your camera well in different environments. So
it's so much versatility in all of that. And you, like you say, you have to be ready to go in any condition, any time, and while doing it safely and, effectively as well too. So it's so much behind the shot, like you say, sometimes, it has to happen. And that's something that we'll hopefully we'll get into a little bit later as we'll try to broadcast the video. But it looks like we're getting a bunch of questions. Russ Wagle asks, how many lumens do you recommend for a beginner's light within recreational limits?
So for recreational limits, this is going to sound crazy, but when there's a lot of ambient light and the water is already pretty bright, so say you're diving in Florida or Grand Cayman, Bonaire, you actually need more powerful lights than you do in deeper or darker water. So because there's already more ambient light.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
If you get a really small light, it just can't cut through the water very well in recreational depths. So honestly, I'd say get the most powerful light that you can afford. Somewhere around like 10,000 lumens or 15,000 lumens would be ideal. The other thing you could do, which would also be cost effective if you're shooting stills, not video, is to go with strobes. Strobes are still really, really powerful and cut through the water, or cut through really well, especially in really bright environments. So, like a pair of, Einon Z240s, or they just came out with new ones, Z330, something like that, or some CNC light strobes. Those will really help add a lot more color back into what you're shooting, especially in recreational depths.
And, I think that's something that most people overlook when they want to do photography. They focus on the camera, but they ignore the lights. And so
the lighting is so important. It's so important.
Yeah, it's the painting of it.
Yeah, lighting is everything, and how you use the light. I see people with like 10 strobes or 10 lights. You don't even need that many. It's how you
overkill. Why not?
Overkill. Like when we were just talking about when I started diving, and especially in caves, I only had one strobe. One for years. And I learned to be really creative with that one strobe. And nowadays, like if I have some failures or lights or strobes don't work and I'm down to one or two, I can be really, really creative with one or two lights and strobes. So you don't have to have tons of money. Yeah. You don't have to have, tons of lights to get brilliant shots, but they do have to be powerful enough. So, definitely get something, the best that you can afford at the time, and do a lot of research.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of resources on the internet where we can do a lot of research. And so another question that we're getting asked is, what is the best camera to start off with that's not a GoPro?
Thank you for putting in not a GoPro. I usually like to start photography talks with, don't ask me anything about GoPros, because I think I have like a GoPro 3 and I haven't used one since, even though they are very good cameras. A good camera to start out with, again, it depends on your budget. There are so many really good cameras out there, and cameras are just getting better and better. If you're trying to stay under the $3,000 range, I know it just depends. I mean, who laughed? Was that you?
You pay what you get. So the quality it's extremely important, and so that's diving. It's not a cheap hobby or a cheap endeavor at all. So.
No, it's not. And I mean, there's different levels of cameras. I mean, you have like GoPros and para lenses, which are kind of your like point and shoot, entry level, I'll call them, type stuff. A step up from that, like mid-level, might be like a Sony RX100. I think they're up to the 8 right now. And I have the 5. This is the RX100 5. I love this little camera. I use this for so much. Right now I'm just doing photogrammetry models. That's why I have it out. But this thing is like 21 megapixels.
Wow.
So the X108, it's a really good quality camera. And then you get a housing for it. I have a fantasy line housing for this, and they're about $900, so it's not terrible. But when you add lights, you're looking at probably another, or strobes, you're looking at another $1,000. So altogether, maybe about a $3,000 setup. But after that, you're looking more at $10,000 to $15,000 setups for big DSLR cameras and things like that. So it is a good mid-range, and you can do a lot with those cameras. That RX100 I just showed you, I take that on almost every shoot with me, just in case something happens to my primary camera. Well, it only weighs 5 pounds with the housing to travel with, so it's easy to just take along as a second camera.
Sorry, I was smiling because I see that Rebecca was saying, is that a Divesoft beanie? Oh, no, it's a secret hat that we just started making. It's a Divesoft beanie that we just posted it on our webpage, so that if you guys are interested, I know we're coming up on the summertime, but you can order these online on our eShop. So
I like it.
A little detraction coming from cameras, but
I live in Philadelphia right now, and it is pouring. It's raining so hard that it looks like it's hail outside. It's really insane. The window's right in front of me. I could use that beanie just about now because it's like 50 degrees and pouring rain.
It's great. It's thick and it's huge too. So it's going to be good. I'm going to have it with me at all the dive sites. Yeah, we've added a lot of new products to our eShop, kind of new little things. I feel funny putting this cameo in, but we have these great new hats too. And so take a look on the website, on the Divesoft website, and some stuff while you're sitting at home. Great to have. So a bunch of new hats. So if anybody knows me, I'm a big fan of hats. So Dave just walked right behind you. So he's sneaking about.
Yeah, it's really pouring rain. It's raining like crazy right now. It's kind of insane.
It's I don't think I've seen rain in
go outside and just like see what it feels like to be wet again. My hair, I don't think my hair has ever been this dry like in years.
Yeah, we a lot of the wildlife management areas are still open. And so Buford is about an hour away. So we stuck out last weekend to go take a look at Buford. And so the conditions were fantastic. So it was so nice. So if anybody's curious,
diving rebreathers, Buford was the place that I went the most because like it was sort of open water-ish, and I just wanted to get hours. So I was doing, and that was before they built a boardwalk. So I mean that was pretty that was pretty serious. You had to walk back
really
in there.
Nice. I just wheel my cart up like I'm going on holiday.
you knew guy. Yeah, no.
I don't have to truck through the mud, and I don't have to earn it. So
you spoiled divers. I see when Rebecca asked a question earlier about how many different rebreathers have I dove. Maybe like I'm certified on maybe 5 or 6 different rebreathers, but I've probably dove a couple others on top of that. But I only actively dive 2 rebreathers, the Megalodon and the Divesoft Liberty. So those are the only 2. I feel like, I try to limit the amount of rebreathers I'm on just because of proficiency and staying really, again, proficient with the skills and on those 2 rebreathers. So I try to.
It's a really interesting topic. How many rebreathers should, is it like how many rebreathers can you be proficient on at one time? I mean, I even get asked like, why do I need a separate certification for a separate rebreather? The core fundamentals they're the same, but there's so many different nuances between each of them, and the way that they breathe, the electronics, so many different mechanics that are different. And if you're teaching, and if you want to be proficient, you should really focus on a few particular, and rather than trying to be what's the saying go, a jack of all trades and a master of none.
Yep. You know a little bit about every single one, and like you said, they're all Yeah, sure. They're similar in a lot of ways. I mean, rebreathers work all the same way, but the skills are different and the electronics are different on a lot of them. And, to be proficient and say, I'm going to go do a 200-foot dive, in the Great Lakes in cold water, I do workup dives. I go to my quarry, I practice skills, I start shallow, I do 130, 150-foot dives before I jump into 170s and 200s. Because if something's going to go wrong, I prefer for that thing to go wrong in shallow water where I can fix it and have the muscle memory to deal with it before you're in deep water and I have a camera and all these other things happening. So
exactly.
Yeah, I've definitely had to deal with pretty much every single problem that we teach in a class. I have had happen to me at some point, except for a full flood. Knock on wood, I've never had a full flood. I'm sure I'm gonna have one now, but when I teach classes, I say, look, the reason we're teaching this skill is because this is something that can happen and it's important to practice this. So when it does happen, because it will someday, maybe not next year, it might happen in 5 or 10 years,
right,
but it will happen to you, that you know how to deal with it in that situation. So I think people don't practice enough, like they do their class, they might practice a little bit after class. And then when everything's working well on the rebreather, because rebreather technology has advanced and everything works so much better now, they just kind of stop practicing the basic skills. So
exactly. Yeah. And, life will throw you around and it won't be practice. And so,
and that goes for diving them in open water, diving them in caves, practicing skills in caves, practicing with dry gloves, because obviously your manipulation isn't as much if you've got big, thick gloves on. So there's a lot of different ways to practice.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really good point. Dry gloves, even being cold, like you have dexterity issues and stuff. So I've had floods. I've had flooded units and been able to recover because of skills that I was taught. And you can't harp on safety training and repetition enough. You got to teach that muscle memory, especially if you go from different units or different configurations, because the muscle memory, could work against you as well if you're used to something being right here all the time and then at this time it's not. So it's cool. We got Stefan asking some questions too. Stefan's going to be joining us I think next week too. So
very nice. Good lineup.
When shooting video, do you rely 100% on the electronic for PPO2 control, or do you keep an eye on it? Of course. Oh, and keep an eye on it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because both the rebreathers that I dive are electronic ECCRs, so electronically controlled rebreathers. So I have the option of flying them manually, but traditionally I set the electronics to maintain a PO2 of 1.2 or 1.3, depending on the dive. And I just monitor it, which is really easy because when I have the camera in front of me like this, I usually just turn, let me go this way. I turn the handset. So it's right here. It's not on top of my wrist. It's like on the side. So when I'm shooting, it's really easy for me to just glance easily at my wrist, or the heads up display. And I just monitor the PO2 from there. So I love the handsets on the Liberty. You have the different screens and you can put it where it's just big PO2, just your number on one screen, and you can have all the other information on the other. That was my favorite screen at first, especially when I first started diving the Liberty. And now I'm kind of back to the main screen where I like seeing all 4 oxygen sensors and the helium sensors and everything that's kind of going on. But that big one is really, really nice.
I like mixing them up a lot. And so, because I'll go between both my hands pretty often. I can imagine if you're kind of more fixed in place with a camera, that'd be a little bit different. So
yeah, and it depends if I'm shooting video or stills. If I'm shooting video, things are more fixed right here, but stills obviously. So I'm weird. I don't use one of the viewfinder extenders. I have one, but I don't use it. I just like to do it traditionally and hold it up to my eye and look through, and that's how I shoot. So with that being said, I usually, I'm looking at my PO2, I'm lining up my shot, I take a couple shots, and then I usually review the picture. And at the same time, I can be looking at my heads up display and my PO2. So I'm still looking at my PO2 every 1 to 3 minutes, which is recommended.
Good.
And,
yeah.
Kind of in between shots versus, during. So.
Old man screen. Oh yeah. I'm not there yet. That's what Stefan was yelling. Yeah, we're not there yet. We don't know anything about no old man screen. What are you talking about?
Since we're still talking about cameras, I saw a question pop up earlier. Somebody asked about mirrorless cameras, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and what my opinion was on those. Honestly, I'm not I still like a traditional 3:2 format, or like a 35 millimeter sensor versus the mirrorless sensors. They're 3/4. I don't like the aspect ratio. It bothers me because with mirrorless cameras, they're more you either get more of a square picture, or it's kind of square, or you get 16:9, which is really elongated, and that's great for video, the 16:9, but it's
more thematic. Yeah.
Not a traditional photo for me, and I can't get what I want out of mirrorless cameras usually. So I still like shooting DSLRs, with 35 millimeter sensor. So.
Yeah, I know that mirrorless cameras are kind of making they're not making a comeback. They're growing more in popularity. And I always use single SLRs, single lens reflex, and I'm pretty traditional in that sense. And I started using film, but now I'm just I like that habit. But yeah, I know that they're gaining in popularity, so that's a good question.
They are, and the results are beautiful. They're great in low lights. They're really nice for video, but for stills, I'm just not, it just doesn't do it for me. And maybe I'm just stubborn, and it's just how I grew up, and I like shooting film. I know, I'm just getting old and grumpy, but I like a just traditional DSLR camera, and
I like hearing that.
Yeah, it's fake now, the sound, but
Yeah.
I can get what I want out of those cameras. Because when I have a picture in mind, I can see it in my mind before I even take it sometimes, and I can accomplish that with that type of camera. So let's see what.
So do you shoot video with the DSLR too?
Sure. DSLR cameras are getting better and better with video. Right now I shoot, I have a couple Nikon D850 cameras, and it shoots 4K video, and they shoot I think it's 120 frames per second. So some high speed as well. And it's beautiful. It shoots really, really well. Usually I'm not shooting with that camera for my professional shoots. We have a Red Epic Dragon and a couple other cameras that we shoot with if we're hired for documentaries. But I still shoot a lot for me and for stock footage with my D850s and my D800 previous to that. So yeah, sure. I think the difference is, you can't do as much, and I don't I have some different weighting systems going on my DSLR, because the bigger the dome port, the more air that's in it, and it makes the whole camera want.
Oh yeah, it'll.
So the video tends to be a little not quite as stable, because you're kind of fighting that dome port. So I have some weight on the bottom of it, which then makes the whole thing heavier. So then I need to add more flotation. So your smallish camera just sort of grows with all of this. But the goal is to keep it steady and neutral, so that you can do some nice, pans, or just keep the camera steady.
And compensates for the fatigue as well too. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I see West Coast side mount. I think that's run by my good friend Alan over in the West Coast. Have you used the Liberty side mount as a bailout rebreather along with a back mount? If so, how well does it track your profile?
So when I've only been diving the Liberty side mount rebreather for just over a year. I started on it last January. Granted, I've got over 100 hours on it now, but my goal was to someday use it as a bailout rebreather. But my biggest goal was to get on the rebreather, really get to know the electronics, dive it in the configuration it's sort of meant to be in, which is traditional side mount, so that, when I have a shoot come up, I'm ready to go, and I'm proficient using it as a side mount rebreather. My goal was this summer to start hopping in my local quarry just to 20 feet and messing around with it a little bit as a bailout rebreather, just to get the feel for it, because it does have a bailout mode as one of the modes. But I haven't had the chance to do that yet. But both Joe and I know a lot of people that are diving them as bailout rebreathers. And I think that's a pretty hot topic right now. Bailout.
Yeah, bailout rebreathers really are. I always remember that being kind of like very fringe thing to have dual rebreathers. It was like, wow, it was huge. And now I'm seeing videos and like it's becoming more and more popular, and which is great. And, you know, like you said, the Liberty or Divesoft does have a setting in the electronics where that it knows that it's a bailout rebreather mode. And so basically it tracks your tissue loading. It maintains a safe PO2. You'll still have to be breathing on it to basically keep the scrubber warm, because when you do jump on it, it's going to be quick, right? It's, you know.
Bailout rebreather is still so experimental. I mean, if you want to call rebreathing, right, you know, we're all pioneers to begin with. Even though
side mount rebreathers, I think, are still, you know, but
side mount rebreathers, I think everyone's still figuring it out. There's not really you know, like a lot of course materials. There's just not really a standardized way to use any of them. And there's a lot of side mount rebreathers that are different from each other. I mean, the Liberty versus, you know, like a KISS versus, you know, and even KISS, they've got the two different kinds. So there's so many different ones out there. But I guess back to bailout rebreathers, I think you're going to have to really have to have a really good reason to use it as a bailout rebreather, whether it be a remote place, somewhere you can't get as much bailout gas, because I think there's also a lot of risk that comes in using something as a bailout rebreather. You know, you're adding a lot more task loading. You're now driving 2 rebreathers at once.
Exactly.
That's, you know, as you're descending, you're going to have to be switching loops maybe every 5 or 10 minutes, you know, 5 minutes or so. When you get to the bottom, you've got to make sure that bailout rebreather is working, because if you need to bail out, you know, you'll have an open circuit tank as well, but then you're also going to need that bailout rebreather to be working. And then it's on that dive. Do you switch every 20 minutes? Like, what? There's not really in my mind, there's not really something standardized yet as to how to dive them. And I've have quite a few friends that are diving some bailout rebreathers, whether it's a back mount and side mount or 2 side mounts. And, you know, they've certainly gone through their share of problems and oh shit moments. So right. I think we easily talk about bailout rebreathers, but there's a lot more complications to it than.
It's like we had a spike in the technology. What Divesoft kind of brought to the table, as well as KISS and other companies with manufacturing a side mount rebreather, and then another spike with the bailout rebreathers becoming more mainstream. And so now we're like, okay, now we need the skills to catch up to utilizing the technology. So, you know, it's a relationship that needs to kind of work together. And so, but yeah, I think it's incredibly cool, and it's going to be leading into the future. But, you know, right now having good old fashioned open circuit is pretty nice.
It's just kind of stupid simple. You know that, you know,
extremely robust.
Open circuit, you know, bailout. It's gonna, you know, you've got open circuit bailout. So again, I think there's just certain. I want to personally try using it as a bailout rebreather. You know, obviously the biggest concerns are flooding, and then, you know, making sure somebody's there to watch you and, you know, watch you switch loops as you're going back and forth and things like that. But you know, I think there's a lot of possibilities for the future. And one of the things I really do love about the Liberty, and one of the reasons I went with it, was because like my husband Dave got certified on it. You know, some of our friends are now getting certified on it, now teaching it, but it clips on just like an aluminum 80. You know, there's no fuss. Yeah. It's self-contained. You clip it on. So some of these expeditions and big shoots that we do, they are in remote places all over the world. And it would be really great if, well, not if, we are going to take the Liberty with us and use that as, you know, yeah, sure, a bailout rebreather, but say we have 5 people in the water and somebody has a failure, we should have enough bailout gas. But it also is nice to just go, you know what, if one person's carrying it, you could just hand it right off to somebody else and they can clip it on just like a stage and start start doing their deco as well. So I think there's a lot of possibilities for that in the future.
Yeah, it's an incredible piece of technology with a lot of possibilities. So And we're Divesoft is bringing even more things to the table with the new light configuration, the heavy configuration. So I always laugh that a lot of the engineers in the factory, they're just like pumping stuff up all the time. I was like, wait, I need to catch up, So it's but it's exciting, I think. So
for sure.
All right.
Mike Richardson asked where the counter lung is. No, the counter lung, it's not on your back, Michael. The counter lung, I'm sure you can pull up a picture of the Liberty, but it's on top of the tanks. I mean, basically picture the rebreather almost like an aluminum 80, but it's all self-contained. So the counter lung is on the rebreather itself. So it sits sort of against your body, like right here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Alex Libitsky must be laughing. He's using 2 side mount units. Yeah, there's some folks I know.
He is so badass, by the way, so badass.
Yeah, it's like a perfect configuration, right? Completely self-contained, system. Yeah. So
I met him when we were in Italy, and I was like, I have so many questions for you, because he's doing cold water stuff, cave, dual side mount rebreathers. I was like, it's really impressive.
Yeah, I certainly have a lot of respect for cold water diving. I like being from the South, so.
Yeah, but Alex, so Daniel's question there. Yeah, Alex, he is truly badass, and he is using 2 side mount Liberties, but he doesn't really have like any other bailout. I mean, he's got like an aluminum 40, I believe, under each of those.
Oh, they're attached to it, aren't they?
Yeah, they're attached to it, I think, as the dill, and then he's using the dill from one as suit inflation or something like that. But it's but he has I don't think he's not using any other gas. Like he doesn't have an aluminum 80 or any other gas with him. So, to me, to each their own. That's, a little more ambitious than I feel like I want to be. I mean, that's a lot of confidence that both your rebreathers will work. And hey, the thought of 2 rebreathers going down, that's pretty big, but I'd still feel more confident having at least, some more open circuit bailout gas.
It does give you a good amount of confidence to have that open circuit bailout, and just, that you have enough gas and that you have that there. So, oh, look, we got a nice shot. I don't know who that diver is in that picture.
Look at that pretty diver, right?
That trim.
Yeah, that was in Florida, diving, just Ginny Cavern, actually. I was just getting some hours on it and practicing and playing, and, it trims out really nicely and feels great in the water. Honestly, I mean, I know this is a Divesoft talk, but I'd say this anytime. It's the most comfortable I've ever felt on CCR, because you don't have any counter lungs on your chest. Like, you just have the loop that comes up from underneath your arm. And you're on side mount, so you have a lot of freedom. And it's so much better than open circuit side mount, where you're like changing regs, looking at gauges, moving the tanks around, like nothing changes. It's so awesome. The best I've ever felt on side mount.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's great to hear. I mean, I think the same thing, but it's like, oh yeah, with the company. I was like, no, I was like, it's really comfortable. It's really good, and we all have our preferences and stuff. But it's a side mount rebreather. It's just like, it's really great. So
we were talking about photography and like the work that I do earlier. I wouldn't dive something if I didn't like it, and if it was going to cost me a job or something like that. So it took me several years looking into different side mount units when I knew I wanted one, just trying to find the one that would be the right fit, because I end up in a lot of remote places, and if I'm hired for a job, I need to make sure I get that job done, and my equipment needs to be working and functioning properly. So it's a big decision for me.
Yeah, I mean, I know before I worked for the company, I had my Liberty, and I bought mine during graduate school, and it took me, I can't even say how many years it took me to save up, and it's cash across the table, and it took me a long time to research and to decide on a unit. And I always recommend that to all students and anyone asking questions, is like, learn about the rebreathers. You can go do a demo dives, you can, there's a lot of different options and stuff, but the research is so important, because it is such a big investment into this equipment. So
And, it's important to ask whoever, find a good instructor, do research on your instructor, interview the instructor, see how many hours they have on that particular unit. What kind of environments do they dive in? Are they diving in the same environment that you're going to dive in? Because maybe you go travel somewhere warm to take the class, but then most of your diving is in cold water. So, make sure that, just do your research and find a good instructor to learn from and to mentor you.
Let me see. There's a really good question. Any perspective on being able to use solid-state sensors instead of galvanic cells in the future? So, what's your 2 cents on that?
I mean, sure. I mean, once the technology, I think it's still patented right now, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And it's going to be expensive, but I mean, sensors are one of the biggest failure points on a rebreather. So, I mean, I think that technology will be a really great addition someday.
And I know with our solid state helium sensors, if you don't take care of them, they'll have problems because people neglect them. They treat it like, oh, it's like a battery. And it's like, it's not that way. You have to learn about the characteristics and you have to take care of them. And, if people don't take care of it, then you're going to have other problems. But this is like the rebreather. It's like a living organism. You have to take care of it. And so, like you said, it's still patented, and so the technology is moving that way. But I really like how you can really see the behavior in the life of the oxygen cells. Mm-hmm. They have some of them will have like a personality, and with the oxygen testing kit that you can use on the Liberty head, there's no excuse in not testing the cells pretty frequently, and there's no excuse to be having old cells.
Nope.
So
definitely not.
All right. I think we're running into so many side topics that I wanted to talk about one of your Emmy Award winning videos. It was the miracle at Merritt's Mill Pond. I don't know I don't know how many of our viewers have seen a lot of your footage that you post on Vimeo. You have a lot of really good videos in there that are some kind of Florida diving and some other topics, a big wide range of topics. Mm-hmm. And so what we wanted to do here is we wanted to have a commentary as we kind of broadcast the miracle in the mill pond and see how your perspective is on behind the scenes.
Sure. Well, let me just set this up real quick. So this video, it was a 4-part series that we did for CBS, and it was in 2013, I believe. And it was right after, they call them the Christmas Day tragedies, where a father-son mm-hmm. went into Eagle's Nest and they both died. And so this kind of sparked a lot of, obviously a lot of news and media all over the world, I believe. I don't know if it was just the United States. But it brought up a lot. So, we did this 4-part series on cave exploration. Why do people even cave dive in the first place? The science, the technology involved. Then we did a piece on training. So the reporter, Dave Sutta, who was,
great video, by the way.
He was already a scuba diver, so he went through Ed Sorensen's cavern and intro to cave class, along with his cameraman. So we filmed a behind-the-scenes part about the training and their struggle, with the training. And I mean, we all struggle through those classes, right? But it extra hard. They were like, "Who do you recommend?" Oh, you got to do it with Ed Sorensen. So,
and then we're going to give him a microphone so he can talk to you underwater while this stuff's happening.
Yeah. By the way, he's going to wear a full face mask, and you're going to just wear listen-only ear devices. So he can just yell at you. It's going to be great. And it was a lot of fun. And then we did a piece on a rescue, because Ed at the time, I think he had done 3 or 4 rescues at that point. He has a lot more under his belt at this point. But we recreated, we reenacted one of the rescues that he did. So the video that I'm going to show you, Miracle on Merritt's Mill Pond, is one of the rescues that he performed. So this took a pretty decent sized team. We filmed it in Twin Cave up in the Mill Pond, and that's already a silty cave, so you don't want to have a lot of people in there. And mm-hmm. the thing is, we also didn't want to actually have an accident while trying to recreate an accident. So we had safety divers, everybody had comms. I had a full face mask, and so did Ed, so that he actually, no, I'm sorry, he wasn't wearing one on this.
Yeah, he just wore a bone phone.
Yeah, he was just wearing the bone phone. So, I was directing, and we had really good certified full cave divers to basically be the open water victims in there. But, they were certified full cave divers. So it was pretty exciting. And for me, it was fun to do a recreation, to tell this story, because in my heart and in my bones, I'm a storyteller. So whether I'm shooting video or shooting stills, I want to tell a story. So this was a really cool piece to do. So I'm going to show you about, I think, just 2 minutes of the video, and then we can go back and I can kind of walk you through some of it. But I think you need to see the video and kind of get your heart beating before we start talking about the behind the scenes part of it. So this is Miracle on Merritt's Mill Pond. Can you guys pull it up full screen?
It's a beautiful day in the small town of Marianna, Florida. The birds are basking in the sun. The water in Merritt's Mill Pond is crystal clear. A father and his teenage children are about to dive into a cave they've heard about on vacation. Twin Caves, a relatively shallow adventure, appears innocent. 17-year-old Alexandra Clark enters the opening 20 feet deep. Her father, an open water diving instructor, immediately realizes they're in trouble. A thick layer of silt on the cave floor starts billowing up. He races for his daughter. By the time he gets to her, though, an unforgiving cloud blinds them both. Which way is out? They move together along the wall, feeling their way. For a brief second, Raymond lets go of his daughter. He reaches back for her. She's gone. Thinking she made it out, he feels his way out. When he surfaces, he realizes his daughter is nowhere to be found. He pleads with nearby cave divers to rescue her.
And the cave divers said, "Oh no, we're not trained for this."
Cave diving instructor Ed Sorensen was teaching a class when he got the call. The clock is ticking. Once she's out of air, she's dead.
If they're not already dead, they're going to be really soon, so I need to get there really quickly.
He ditches his class, jumps in a truck, races towards his house. Out back, his crew is throwing gear into a boat.
He had that gear on the boat in literally minutes flat. I've never seen him move that fast.
As they steer toward Twin Caves, Ed suits up.
And there's 25,000 feet of passage in there. Where do you start? It's one of those things that it's virtually an impossibility.
When they pull up, those crystal clear waters are gone.
So I jumped in the water and couldn't find the hole, and I thought, this is going to be really embarrassing if I can't even find the hole in the ground. I felt around till I found the ledge. I found the opening, tied on a primary reel and started doing a search pattern until I ran into a set of legs.
Alexandra Clark, alive.
She had found an air pocket up in the ceiling, and she'd gotten up into the air pocket.
In that very moment, Ed must look out for himself.
If panic set in, I mean, they can take you out real quick. And that's part of the reason why a lot of people don't want to do this kind of thing. Getting a dead body is one thing. Getting a live body that could take you out is another thing.
A desperate diver will stop at nothing for air, even if it means taking your life.
She was remarkably calm. She was crying. She was, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Her calmness meant she used less air. Her calmness meant Ed had a fighting chance to save her.
I told her it's really bad. I'm going to put you on my arm. I'm not going to let you go of you. I am going to get you out of here.
All he has to do now is follow his emergency line out of the cave.
We were quite a ways from the exit, and the reel's now going to start tangling her up. And at this point, I thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to grab this girl that I told her I wasn't going to leave her and try and move her away from my body.
Ed makes a difficult decision.
I just dropped the reel.
He lets go of his line to the exit, his lifeline, to untangle Alexandra. They both are now swimming blind.
I put a lot of bodies in bags, and it's really nice to be able to send one home happy and thankful. Very rewarding.
You could call it luck she lives, but many say it's something else, something magical that happened in 2012. Ed Sorensen didn't just rescue Alexandra Clark, he rescued 3 other divers trapped in caves. 4 people living today because of him.
Maybe it was just a miracle. Maybe it was 4 miracles stacked on top of each other.
My Vimeo channel. for those of you who are interested. So, okay, hey, we're back. Sorry.
Hey,
I'm pulling it from my computer here. So, yeah, so it just kind of, even every time I watch it, even though I shot it,
it's a good story. Yeah.
Every time I know it's a reenactment, it still kind of makes my heart like skip a beat just watching that. So, I mean, this was, a really crazy story, and obviously it has a happy ending, which is great because a lot of times cave diving doesn't always have happy endings. But so what we did here was, we interviewed Ed for the story, and Ed is awesome because, he has a lot of details. He remembers a lot of details. And so first we had to interview him. So we knew the stages and the steps and kind of what transpired. And then after that, I sat down and listened to the interview probably a couple times and started putting a shot list together. So, I just started saying, all right, well, we're, to tell this story properly, we're going to need to get shots of this, this, and this. And it might take us a couple dives to do that. We got our team together. I think there was 5 of us. It was Diana Molnar played the daughter, Alexandra. Stave was a safety diver. We had Ed, myself, and I believe, and there was somebody, another guy in the water as well as a safety. So we went in and, did some of the recreations inside the air pocket, of her just gasping for air. Then we had Ed come in and kind of just recreate everything. We had to keep doing it, kind of in stages because, we need to get shot. I need to get close-ups of his hands on her hands and then the letting go. I need to get shots of him dropping the reel, wider shots, the silt out shots. So, it's a pretty wild experience shooting in a silt out. So you'll have to be comfortable and have a good safety plan in place. And Dave, again, a safety diver in the back, just sort of, making sure everybody's okay and, kind of hovering, with his lights off and ready to jump in there if needed.
Yeah, it seems like, when you watch kind of that story, a lot of it was topside and a lot of it was like interviews, discussion, and then you're painting with the scenes that you're kind of building up, like them going inside, the father letting go of the daughter. And so you're kind of catching these moments, and it's, but they're like small but very important, significant moments. And so.
What kind of builds anticipation too, Ed hadn't introduced to it yet. You see the father like let go of the daughter's hand, and you just, every time my heart just like skips it.
It's dramatic, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of us that are cave divers, we've been in situations where maybe we've lost the line, or we can't see our buddy. Yeah. And it's always a little dramatic. And then to not even be a certified cave diver or even a cavern diver and going into one of these environments and totally blitzing it out, but then having the nerve to still stay alive, not knowing if somebody's going to come and get you is
sit and wait. Yeah.
So that was one of the fun reenactments that we did. We did another one with Ed for a Duracell commercial in Jackson Blue with another guy who found an air pocket and remained alive as well. So I really enjoy doing the reenactments. You've got to be really careful, have a good safety team in place because you're reenacting an accident. You don't want an actual accident to happen as you're doing it. I tend to be overly safe at this point in my career. I take a safety diver with me a lot just for me and say, you are my buddy, because I've been left. We've had miscommunications in caves. Things happen. So I tend to use a lot of different safety divers that you'll never see on camera, but they're there. And I appreciate your help. To those of you who are safety divers of mine.
I appreciate you. It's been a lifeline, right?
I know you guys for all your help. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, at least when you have like a project underwater, it's so important to have like a safety plan, a hierarchy of like an incident. Whenever there's an incident, like how are we going to handle the incident? Who's going to be in charge? Who makes the decisions? At least when we used to teach a lot of scientific diving and projects with NOAA, we had a diving safety officer who would make calls on everything, and they wouldn't even get in the water. They'd be just kind of quarterbacking everything. And so those kind of things are so fundamental in projects. And
Yeah, they really are, especially in caves, overhead environments, or deep dives. I'd love to have a safety diver, somebody who's just going to stay with me, or just, because things do happen, and, you've got a camera in your hands, or you've got a whole big team, and, we really work together as a team. So even if there's 5 of us, if somebody's having a problem, that's it. We'll come back, we'll redo it. It doesn't, it's not, oh, okay, bye, good luck, or okay, why don't you 2 go? Usually we'll go up as a team. So.
It's important, and sometimes there's that mentality. Well, I don't need to. I don't want to ruin anything. I don't want to speak up about a problem. At NASA, we always, or just even with with a lot of the diving culture in cave diving, anyone can call any dive for any time for any reason. And so, even though on projects, I'm sure there's a huge amount of pressure to push the limits and to push the efforts, and so nobody wants to speak up, but creating a culture where it is encouraged to speak up is good and important.
I'm not embarrassed to call dives. I have to call usually 1 or 2 a year for just whatever various reasons. Maybe I've got a leaky dry glove or whatever. There's just, or you're just not feeling right. I'm to the point now after 26 years of diving, if I don't feel right even before I get in the water, I'm kind of like, yeah. You know what? Why don't we just go get lunch? I'm just not. I'm feeling it today. Or, Murphy's Law, when you have a cascade of problems start happening. By
the 3 rules, right?
Yeah, the 3 rules. By the second one, I'm kind of going, yeah, you know what? I'm good. Why don't we just come back and retry this later today or tomorrow? Or, my head's not right now, so let's just skip it. My mom tuned in, by the way, and she says she appreciates my safety divers too.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm sure she does. We can talk all day about that. So it's, we've reached the limit of our scheduled time, but we can keep talking all day. Do you have any kind of last minute comments or anything?
No, there was a question earlier that I saw. It was in the very beginning that I really wanted to answer. And I'm sorry, I don't know who said it. I can't go back. I can't find it right now. But it was somebody who asked about diabetes and diving. And I'm really sorry to hear that. But one thing I will tell you, I don't know if there's been anything new about, about diving again. I don't think so. But being a rebreather instructor and all that, this is kind of crazy for me to say, but some of the very best things that I've ever done have been snorkeling. So if you're not able to dive anymore, or if it's just too dangerous for you, then I highly suggest snorkeling. There's amazing things you can do. Back whales, dolphins. When I was just in Antarctica, I was with a leopard seal. That was snorkeling. There's so many manatees. There's a lot of really great things you can do snorkeling. So if you're not able to dive anymore, I'd look into some of those other opportunities.
One other request that I received was, you had the expedition in the Antarctic. It's such an incredible place. It's somewhere that I've always wanted to go. If you could talk real quick, tell us how that expedition in Antarctica was.
Antarctica is just incredible. It is one of the most beautiful places on the planet. And I have some photos if anyone's interested. I've got photos and video on my website, liquidproductions.com. Go to the galleries and you can see photos of Antarctica, or vimeo.com/liquidproductions. I've got some Antarctica videos, but it's just otherworldly. It's like stepping off of planet Earth onto another planet. You're surrounded by ice and glaciers and mountains and these penguins that could care less about you. They just sort of waddle up to you and look up at you, and they just don't care. And it's it's a really amazing. It's an amazing place, and it gets down in your heart. And I can't wait to go back again someday.
Yeah, the penguins are pretty funny. I've only worked with them in aquariums, but they really don't care about anything.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And, your pictures of the leopard seal are incredible. Some of the best photographs I've ever seen of those animals, and it's so good. So you say that he joined you for like about 90 minutes?
Yeah, it was really one of the most incredible interactions I think I've ever had in my life, in my dive career. We were just surfacing nearby after doing an iceberg dive, and another boat radioed our boat and said, "Hey, we've got a leopard seal in the water with our snorkelers." So we zipped over there, and it was pretty awesome because here we go. Is that my website? Let's see. Okay, pull up the gallery, actually, Mataj. Or here, actually, pull up. Here, hold on. Sorry, I totally interrupted. Here, I'll pull up the pictures myself. Here we go. Chrome. And here we go. Here you go. You should have a screen now that I just pulled up. So they call the snorkel boat, and the snorkel boat called us and said, "Hey, get over here now. We've got a leopard seal." And so, I threw on my mask and fins and everything, and I thought, you know what, I may only get one opportunity. This animal might only be in the water with us for, who knows, maybe 1 or 2 passes. It could be less, and it stayed in the water for 90 minutes. Everybody on the whole trip got to hang out with this leopard seal, and it was
posing. Yeah, he's just like, oh, I know.
Honestly, this shot, if I don't take another pretty picture for the rest of this year, I'll still be smiling. I was so happy because, as a photographer, you can't always pick the conditions, and the animal and the interaction and everything. And here we had a player. This animal was like curious. It wasn't showing signs of aggression. And then we had all this amazing brash ice on the surface, and then the icebergs sort of behind. So I was like backing up, waiting for the leopard seal to kind of swim in between me and the ice. And I couldn't have imagined it any better, because you can't plan shots like this. It's just
no, not with animals.
Here we are in freezing cold, icy water, like flopping around on the surface like awkward dying penguins or something. And these ice chunks, you're just like pushing them out of the way with your head, trying to move your camera through the water, and you've got this leopard seal just zipping around underneath of you. So
they're so fast in the water.
Yeah, they're really beautiful. So here's another shot.
That's one of the best things about marine life, is that they're not as scared a lot of times as how often are you going to see like a coyote or something, or even, I guess I'm speaking locally, but like animals on land, they're more skittish. But underwater, the marine life, they act completely different. And then, if you're on a rebreather, they're, sometimes they'll have fish that they have no personal boundaries or anything,
Yeah, Beatrice is asking if the seal ever showed any signs of distress, nervousness. No, not really. It would come around, and towards the end of the 90 minutes, it would open its mouth in front of some of the divers or snorkelers' dome ports, but it wasn't like biting or anything. It just would like swim right up and just open its mouth like this, and then close it, kind of look at the diver, open, and then maybe like swim away. So it wasn't. I didn't take that as being aggressive. I think they just saw its reflection in some of the dome ports and maybe thought it was another leopard seal, but it wasn't biting people or pushing people around or, showing any signs of aggression. So it was. A lot of animals, they use their mouth as like their fingertips. People touch everything with their fingertips. More bigger animals, you'll kind of feel things with their mouth and kind of testing things out. So a lot of curiosity, especially with smart marine mammals like this. Yeah, I have to thank my friend Katrina, because I told her all week, she'd go, "Hey, do you think we could see a king penguin?" And I'm like, king penguins don't really live here, Katrina, or they're not in the area we're going to be in. Then all of a sudden we'd see a king penguin. And then she'd say, "Oh man, I'd really love to see an emperor penguin." I'm like, Katrina, nah, different area. We're probably not going to see those. Then we saw a juvenile emperor penguin. So then I started telling her, okay, think leopard seal.
She's calling them, she's bringing them to fruition.
Yeah. And then after we saw the leopard seal, we still had more days. I'm going, oh, think orca. Now think about orcas. So we see an orca.
Oh, man. Well, cool. That's great. Yeah. Let's see. Has the seal ever showed signs? Okay. We answered that one. So, well, great. It's so many different experiences. And, I really, I really admire your career. You've gone and done so many things, and it's so exciting where there's so many more things that you can do and want to do. And so, you get to keep sharing this and sharing your projects and your experiences to everyone. We're kind of like, we'll live through you on some of these kind of expeditions. So,
well, I've got a lot more hopefully coming up soon. We've got some great trips to the Great Lakes, diving, my favorite place on the planet, and on those shipwrecks. So I'm hoping to get in there soon. I've got a lot of classes coming up at Dutch Springs, and then hopefully later on this year, Croatia, the Arctic. Lots of good things on the horizon. So
great. And then if anyone would like any Liberty training or any kind of training, they can always reach out to you. So
absolutely. I'm only teaching the side mount rebreather at the moment, so unfortunately I can't teach the back mount one, but you can, right, Joe?
Yep, I can. So we'll tag team it, right?
Exactly. But yeah, I'm loving hanging out or diving my side mount Liberty, and hopefully I'll get to do some demos later on this year too, once things calm down.
Yeah, once things get back to normal. We've got a lot of plans in the near future, so be sure to keep an eye. So, all righty. So next week, join us at the same time. Becky was joining us this week, and then next week we'll have another guest. So, Becky, it's always a pleasure having you, always talking. So happy you could definitely join us. So.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, Joe. Good luck with the rest of your talks. You got some great speakers lined up.
Yeah, I'm excited. But it was fantastic having you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you for